ready. Welcome to the True North Podcast. I'm always like, welcome to the True North Podcast.
Yes.
And
I know.
you trying to do your greeting differently has made me think, should I do mine? Mm-hmm. Should I experiment with? Welcome to the True North Podcast. Where two practicing light workers get together every week to continue an ongoing conversation about wholeness and healing so that you can live as your true self and follow your true north. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Abby.
We're going to talk like this.
I can't even do it.
I wonder how long I could keep that going.
Have you heard that show? There was an old radio show. I don't know the name of it, but Delilah was the show host. Oh. It was very Sleepless in Seattle-ish, where people would call in.
Mail in.
Yeah.
Mail
Delilah.
Yes,
and she always had that voice like, hello, caller. Welcome, caller.
I want to get Casey Kasem to record our intro with his radio voice. He's not around anymore.
No, he's not.
Oh, God. I should edit that out.
He is not. But...
Well...
Posthumously?
Homeschooler?
Yes,
I am.
Thank you.
I am a homeschooler.
Because I think you're smart. How do you say that word? Maybe he can record it for us from the other side.
When we interview that lady in Peru who has the thing that can do that.
Yes,
what's her name?
exactly. Sonia something. See, here we are. We're totally off topic. Are we recording this? Is this really the beginning of the show?
This is how this episode's going to start. This is all part of it.
This is what people get after.
That's all part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it is raw. I mean, this is just...
raw and unfiltered and unedited, except for the parts that I edit out. Actually, our one backup episode that we have, I realized that I shared some stories that I promised I would not share. And so in that episode, whenever we release it, there's going to be a part where I cut off, and I'm like, this is actually a part where I'm not supposed to say the things I said, so instead I'm just going to tell you the gist of it without naming names. And then I jump back into the actual thing. It was super fun to edit that.
Nice.
Feel shame about spilling the beans. Anyway.
Here we are.
This is going to be a fun one, because this is not at our normal time. We were not planning on doing this until yesterday, and...
Yep.
We're both elsewhere.
Yes, very true.
Where are you today?
Where am I? So,
where are you today right
now? I am all over the board, totally unable to focus clearly.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed. And this is where I usually use exercise to sort of calm the mind down and streamline what's important and sort of where I need to find my focus and take away the mental chatter. And I have been under the weather, so to speak, this week, and actually talked to Tony about it and just some things that I could do to sort of help heal my body and get me back on track. And he's... I exercise 6 days a week, and he's like, you got to stop exercising. What?
Oh, I feel like that would just produce a 504 error in your brain. Does not compute. I don't know what you
one
just
of those
said right
alarms,
now.
rah, rah, rah. That's
Shut
what's
down,
going on in my head.
push
Yes,
back.
yes. System failure. Yeah.
You need that document that's when you feel defensive, here's what you should do.
Yes, right. So I'm like, so I shouldn't exercise. He's like, no. Very much that way. That's how he, no. Very much said it that way. Awesome.
Well, then, did you ask him what you should do instead? Because that leaves a giant hole in your life.
It does, but I kind of wanted it to leave a giant hole.
Ah.
Because I really want to get curious as to what happens. Because I don't really allow myself rest. And this is a very big act of self-care, not to work out in terms of my physical body. And so I knew it might lead me down this road with my mental body. And here we are. Yesterday, what happened is, so gratitude month is next month. And in the time of COVID, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my gratitude tree project, right? Because it requires you to touch things that other people are touching. And, you know, do I want to do something with it this year? Do I want to just make it personal for me? I don't know. So I've got like that going on my radar. I have a bunch of just checklists of things I want to do. I have a job coming up where I'm going to be working at the school that I teach at. And so I need to kind of get my focus going on that and get that class together. And so I'm just like, it's just ping, 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 ping. And I'm getting all these different ideas and inspirations, which none of this is bad stuff. Like I love when this happens, but I'm unable to kind of just focus on really what's important. And so then I sort of feel like I've drank too much coffee and I'm like, and it's just too much and it's all coming at me and I don't know how to handle this. And so when I don't physically move my body to like process that anxiety, to think clear, then I just stay there and I don't sleep and I sort of spin out. So I intentionally didn't ask because I wanted to see what would happen and then sort of experiment with other options.
Yeah, so we had a tribe call.
Yes.
Tuesday days ago.
Yes.
And one of our people was in their head, and one of the suggestions was to move your body because the best way to get out of your head is to get into your body.
Yes.
And so you're telling me that you're getting less into your body, and the result is you're getting very much in your head. And it may be that this is an opportunity for you to learn how to navigate that without having the getting into your body as your answer. Maybe what was once a solution has become a crutch, and it's time to develop some new stuff, some new ways of just dealing with it head on.
Yes.
Head on, get it? Pun intended. Actually, I did not intend that pun. I just caught it on the back end.
Nice.
Pun accidentally intended, if that's a thing.
Sure. No, but you are exactly right. And that's, crutch is a good way to put it, because in essence, there is this fear that's always sitting in the back of my mind that I do use exercise as a crutch. And there may come a day where maybe I break a bone, maybe something happens.
And then you literally need a crutch.
Yeah, yes.
I'm on fire!
And I can't, work out. And so that day has come. Like I can work out. I could do what I normally do, which is just push through and do it. But I am also very much trying to practice everything that I'm teaching other people. And one of those things is loving myself and practicing self-care. And physically, he's right. I need to slow down.
And we've also talked about the benefits for you of working out. How like there were a lot of episodes back where you were talking about how you have a lot of anger and it doesn't get processed unless you work out. And if it doesn't get processed, it gets stagnant and then it turns into, more disease and discomfort. And so it's almost like self-care is a moving target. And when in one moment, this is the thing that works for you and helps you in that moment, once you move to a different moment, that may be the wrong answer, even though it was the right answer for then, and you may have a new right answer for now. And that's a huge lesson that I'm learning as well. Like once I lock in on a thing, it's like raising your kid, right? Like once you learn how to be the parent of an infant, you're now the parent of a toddler, and half of that goes out the window, and you have to figure this out, right? And so self-care is almost the same thing. You yourself are continuing to grow and mature and evolve, and so what it means to care for yourself is going to change as you change. So whereas it may seem contradictory to show up on a podcast and be like, here's all the benefits of working out every day because I don't want to, what was it? You said, I don't want to take medicine, right?
Yes.
And at that point in your life, that worked for you. And now in this point in your life, that's working against you. That doesn't mean that what you said then was wrong, or that you're flip-flopping, or that you're wishy-washy or any of that. It just means that you're continuing to be present with yourself and acknowledging that yourself, yourself is in a state of flux, because we all are.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're constantly evolving and growing and changing, and so there is not a one-size-fits-all answer for every moment in your life. And you're right, and I will go back to exercise working for me on a regular basis, but right now that it's not it, and I'm welcome to what might take its place. I'm open to that. And I think that's the key, just to constantly be open and be accepting of whatever comes. Like rigidity has sort of been on my mind lately.
Rigidity, as in like finding places that you're rigid and trying to root that out, or just...
Well, just being so adamant that I have to exercise, that it's to my detriment. Like right now it is to my detriment to exercise. But if I had this rigid mindset of I have to do this every single day, regardless if I'm sick, regardless if I can, just finding a way to make it happen, that is not you are not growing. You are just stuck.
Right. You're continuing to be the person who you were when that worked for you. And
right.
I found myself getting in that pattern a lot, where I discover that I have a certain thing that works for me, and I have a good reason for that being the thing. And then I continue to operate indefinitely as though that's never going to change.
You're right.
And then someone points out and says, hey, could this be the thing that's getting in your way? And my first response is, of course not. I have a good reason for this being the thing. I already worked it out. Mm-hmm. But sometimes so much time has passed that I don't even remember what that reason was. I just remember what I took forward was that I had a good reason, and that was all I needed to trust. Mm-hmm. But the I that had that reason is gone. Mm-hmm. And therefore that reason might also be gone. It's like again, a few episodes ago, because every episode in our past is just a few episodes ago, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. I remember mentioning that I hate TikTok, and I will judge anybody so hard for being on TikTok, right? Do you remember me saying that?
I do now.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, you posted a TikTok video yesterday.
I made a TikTok. I have taken to TikTok. I downloaded it. I gave China my information or whatever the people are saying. And because I realized that there are a lot of people on there. Like my wife got on TikTok and she was showing me that there's actually some not bullshit out there. You kind of have to try to find it. But there's some people doing some real good. And I was like, well, you know what? Maybe there's some people I could reach with some healing stuff. Making some videos, just kind of putting what I know out there and seeing if anything resonates with anybody. And so I got an account begrudgingly. It was like when Ariel's signing her life away. She's like looking this way and signing the... I was like, oh, I really don't want to be doing this. And I realized like maybe just the act of getting into the TikTok world in me signifies that I've done some work in not judging people for things that I would normally judge them for.
Right.
Yeah. Because now I'm becoming the thing that I judge, so I have to grapple with that. And so I just started talking about energy healing and talking about my practice and some things I've discovered and trends and stuff. And then people are commenting and they're like, well, I have some stagnant energy. What about this? And so I made a video about that this morning. And so I'm starting to get some interest. I'm starting to get some, and I feel like this could lead to making an actual difference, making some connections, helping some people that I wouldn't have otherwise had access to. And in order to get into that, in order to jump into that, I had to understand that there was a time that I was very anti-TikTok for a bunch of reasons that felt like good reasons at the time. And those reasons are still there. But I discovered a new reason that kind of steamrolls those. It's bigger. It's more important. It's more meaningful and valuable. And it's enough to make me jump into something that I really spent a lot of time hating on.
Doesn't it make you think, wow, I spent a lot of ridiculous amount of time because here I am and now it's actually helping? Like, do you ever have that thought? Sometimes I'm like, I spent a lot of energy on something I had no business spending energy on. Right.
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about, how like the things that you judge in other people are often the very keys to unlock the doors to your own personal growth. Right. And so at some point I realized if I'm judging TikTok people this hard, there's got to be something there in me, some growth opportunity.
Right.
And so I dealt with it, and then I jumped in, and don't get me wrong. When people do stupid shit on TikTok, I still judge the ever-loving fuck out of them. But that's not the platform's fault. That's just the people who are wasting their time.
Yeah. Okay.
So... yeah, I mean, it's just, and then to look at me now as a TikToker, if me in the past would look forward and be like, was told like one day you're going to have your own TikTok account and you're going to be making videos, it would have been something I would have pushed back on pretty hard, But then me looking back on that it's almost like I just want to pat him on the head and be like, oh, you just do your growing and then catch up,
Well, it was a good video, by the way, for the record. Yes.
Oh, thanks.
Good video. But I think also what we're both trying to say here, too, is that this is what we're talking about is very much a growth mindset.
Yes.
It's just being open and accepting to the fact that there may be something new and something better. You just have to constantly stay open to what that might be for you.
And also just constantly ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing, why you're, and just kind of approach it with that mindset of today I am a different person, slightly different, but different. Mm-hmm. Is the thing that I was doing yesterday still working for who I am today? Mm-hmm. And if it's not, it's okay to change course. It's okay to pivot. If you have a voice in your head that's like, no, you have to do this. This is how it has to be. No questions asked. Do it or die. Well, that's the voice you need to be grappling with and kind of pushing back on and saying, is it your voice? Is it someone else's voice? Where did that come from? And is that voice serving you?
Yes.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes if you set out to do something and there's a long process and you're good at starting stuff and not finishing it, there's going to be that voice that's like, you need to see this through, even though it's not fun anymore. Right? And as you evolve into something that wants to do something different, maybe that's the thing you need to get over is like learn not to shift your gaze so quickly and so readily and kind of follow through on the things that you start. And right now I'm speaking to myself because that's what I do. I'll start something, and once it's off the ground and running, I want to go start something else and never think about it again, So I do have a voice that's like, hey, stick with this. But it's just a matter of where does that voice come from, and is it your highest good, or is it your ego? Is it your soul self or your mind, and just gaining the awareness to tease that out it's a constant practice, but I think we should always be doing that. I just said the word should, but I still stand by that. I don't know. Should I rephrase that? There's another should. Fuck. It's a trap.
It's one of those words that Marie says doesn't exist. That should be added to her list. No, but it should be added to her list.
You just said should.
I did.
It's so hard to escape. We should bleep out the word should. I fucking said it. I was going to say.
Let's bleep out the S word.
I should bleep it out to make it sound like we're cussing at each other. But we're just shitting on each other. We're really just
shitting all over ourselves and each other. Yes.
Abby and Ryan should all over each other.
We had Marie on the show. I cannot believe it.
How does that feel for you?
Like it's come full circle.
Yeah? We're done. It's over. It's been a fun ride, everybody. Drop. We have peaked.
Marie's book is what set me out on the path to be a life coach in the first place.
Right.
To dig deeper into energy and what it is and what that means, and alternative healing practices. And then I had a session with her. And for the record, both her and Tony have told me I'm addicted to my brain. Mm-hmm. Full on addicted.
Oh, shit. And brain. Now you're like moving to a place where that's the one thing you're grappling with. Oh,
right. And so I'm doing this on purpose. Like I know I'm addicted and I need to figure out.
But you're leaning in.
Yeah, we're going back to that.
Yeah.
I am leaning
Marie
in.
Marie told you in your session with her that you were addicted to your brain.
Yes. But she sort of set me down this path, or she's one of many people that influenced my decision to kind of get to where I am today in the work that I do. Mm-hmm. And so just to have her on the show and just, oh my gosh, she's like, it's like having one of your great teachers and you just get to ask them questions and be in their presence. And I kind of have that same thing that I feel with you, where it's just being in her space is really amazing. But she said something that I absolutely love, and it's everything that we want in this life already exists in a high frequency. Already exists in that joy frequency. And I'm like, how much time do we spend like wishing and desiring for what we want? But it's already there. It already exists. And that's when you made that cool little drop down thing that you put on Instagram, like your health, your financial freedom, your best, most loving relationship, whatever it is, already exists. You just have to match that frequency. And I don't know that I've ever heard it put so eloquently, right? That
Yeah. And again, like one of our tribes people mentioned that they understand things better through music than through any other language. And I do think of music as a language. And so if you think about any song, you can play that exact same song a few octaves up, and it's a different it's the same song, but it's in a higher frequency, right? And so in the same way, she kind of, it was kind of a light bulb moment for me, because she listed off all these things that exist in a high frequency, and it almost seemed like it doesn't matter which one you pick, any of those will get you there. And then once you're there, even if you're singing the same song, it's in a different octave, and
Right.
it's all just a better version of what it is when you're in a lower frequency. And her whole thing was like, use joy, because it's accessible, it's easy to train. But anything that exists in a higher frequency, just learn how to stick that in your life and get your vibration up there. And then all of the other things that also exist in a high frequency, well, that's where they live. So you're swimming in that pond now instead of this one. And that's just why that's what your life starts to look like when you're there. And it was just such a paradigm shift for me. Something I've been looking at for years, but now with new eyes.
Is that Bo?
That is Bear.
Bear. Why did I call him Bo?
He kind of looks like
Bear.
a bow. Bo. He's all husky. I'm going to let him in
Bear.
so he doesn't sit there screaming at me through the window like a creep.
We must be on the right track if Bear graced us with his presence. Here he comes. Oh, hello, Bear. Bear is a big black cat, for the record, not an actual bear.
He what?
I said he's a big black cat, for the record, not an actual bear.
When he was a kitten, his ears were curved.
Oh, fun.
And he would stand up on his hindquarters like this.
Like
and
a bear.
do that dance. And he looked just like a little bear. And his little
That's
tail was all short. And he slept a lot. So he was all hibernating. I found 2 raccoons.
Oh.
Oh, that was the biggest non sequitur ever. Back up. Okay, that's my rewind sound. Okay, so this is what it's like to have ADHD. Is you make 1,000 connections all in the blink of an eye, and then you spit out where you landed instead of how you got there. Bear is your power animal, different from spirit animal.
Not your cat, but a bear.
A bear is
my power
Abby's
animal.
power animal.
Yes.
I was told by Tony that right now my power animals are 2 raccoons. He was like, I see 2 raccoons. Tell me what their different personalities were like, and like, they're your power animals. And he gave me like a time frame that they're going to be here being my power animals. And so, of course, like I told you offline, there's I will kick you out.
Let it be. It's raw. He clearly has something to say.
Yes. And I forgot what I was saying.
Your power animals.
My power animals are not Bear. He is
2
my
raccoons.
growth opportunities. Okay, 2 raccoons. So he was like, there are 2 raccoons. And so finding out online or in books what power animals are is really difficult. You have animal totems, you have spirit guides, you have what happens when they show up in your dreams, your meditation, but none of that is power animals. And so you kind of gave me some guidance, which actually really, really helped. But I've just kind of been sitting with it, but not too intensely, because I don't really know what to do with it. So I'm just kind of like letting it percolate. Most mornings I get up, I do my morning thing, I take the boy to his daycare, I come home, I walk around barefoot outside, talk to all my plants, I have a whole thing, right? And then I get started doing whatever I need to do that day. But one day this past week, I'm sitting there doing something I rarely do, which is just mindlessly scroll through a social media feed. I was just on Facebook, just looking at all the stupid content, reading the headlines, not the articles, all the just waste of time stuff that I really try to stay away from. And I saw one video of a guy saving a raccoon who got his head stuck under one of those covers that you put over your car. And it like was between the car and the cover, but something was around his neck, and so he got somebody else to help, and they're both trying to cut the thing off so that it doesn't. And then they fed it cat food, and I was all crying at the end. I don't really know why, because I don't have a thing for raccoons. And then I didn't think anything of it. And then a few flicks of the thumb later, there's another story of like things that mechanics wrote up in their diagnostics at an auto shop that you would have to see to believe. And one of them was a person had a pet raccoon, and he was like, he wanted to hold his pet raccoon in the waiting room while they worked on his car because the raccoon lived in the car. And when I saw 2, I was like, oh shit, there's the 2 raccoons thing. And so I didn't really look too hard into like the stories themselves and what they mean as like a suffocation living in a car. Like I didn't really go that deep into it, but I felt like at the very least it was the universe being like, hey, remember that thing? You need to actually pay attention to that. And so then I started looking into like kind of like you said, what raccoons mean, like how they are, what their environment is, what their behaviors are, how they are socially. And I was like, holy shit. In short, it all tracks.
Yes, because as soon as you told me it was a raccoon, I was like, oh yeah.
But it's 2.
I know. The 2 is fascinating.
And
they have
very
different
distinct personalities.
Yeah.
One that is very much like me, and one that is very much like another prominent presence in my life. And these 2 are just running around like a pair. So it's tricky. Because right now where I'm at is like, if you're going to engage with intuition, and Marie confirmed this, you have to trust that your intuition is actually the thing talking to you and not like you make connections. We have this idea of kind of like logicking our way out of it and thinking that the answer isn't legit because of however we arrived at it. But then there's this other layer of trust you can build where the way that you arrive at it was the way that you were supposed to arrive at it, so that you would arrive at the thing you arrived at. And it's all being orchestrated by, the powers that be or whatever. And so deciding that that's the place I come from and choosing to trust my intuition, I sat with it for a while and kind of like plugged in some things and tried to make some tangible sense of it. And it's starting to make total sense.
She also said, in your story, you kind of led to this, like intuition is very personal, and you don't need a book or something to interpret it. So I heard you say you were first going down the road of like, what does it mean suffocating in a car? Like what the raccoons were actually doing. And then you stopped yourself like, no, this really is here are 2 raccoons. You need to remember this. Like you didn't go down that rabbit hole of trying to find an interpretation. You literally just listened to you.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't need to know a meaning. There wasn't a meaning around what they were doing in those videos per se. It's just that you saw them.
And you know what it was? Like in our interview, Marie talked about a time that she heard her intuition. And then you responded by sharing a story where you heard your intuition. And I was thinking to myself, I have a story of when I heard my intuition, but at this point we're just being all like the same dead horse, and the point's been made and we can move on. But I also have had experiences where I heard that calm, unbiased, unafraid voice just coach me through whatever the thing was. Like the first time I heard it was it was my first experience with sleep paralysis, and it was this voice that like came in and was like, okay, start with wiggling your toe and you're okay, you're not going to die, and like bit by bit helped me to get to where I could move again. And it was that voice. I used to conflate that with my spirit guide. I've learned since that that's 2 different things. One is my intuition, one's my spirit guide. Those are 2 different things. But it was the same little intuition that was like, hey, don't dig into the actual content of the raccoon stories. Just acknowledge the fact that they were sent to you to kind of redirect you from your Facebook feed into something more meaningful. And so that's the reason I didn't. Because normally I would be like, I would be scrutinizing those videos and looking at all the different metaphysical meanings of the things that happen in them, and how can it apply to these raccoons, and how does that apply to me, and just get all cerebral with it and cognitive. And that's my go-to thing. That's what I do when I'm not keeping myself in check. And sometimes that's the thing to do. But in every situation, I've learned and am learning to stop and just be in my body and invite my intuition to come and just give me the green light or the red light. And then it does. And this time it was just like, hey, don't read into the videos. Just be reminded that you need to look at the raccoons. Anyway, I wasn't really going anywhere with that.
No, but this is a good story. See, you kind of practiced what she was saying. But I do want to go back in talking about, residing in a high frequency, because we also had a really good question from another tribe member about what does living in your true north feel like? Should it always be something you look forward to? Like the work that you do, I think is
Yes.
specifically what she was asking about. But should it always be exciting? Should it always be fun? Does that mean that that's living in your true north? My answer to that, and Marie, this is kind of where I was going with what Marie was saying, is like, absolutely. Because if everything that you want and everything that you desire resides in this high frequency that's equal to joy.
Sorry.
If you're watching this, I am not sure what's going on the other side of the screen, but I'm just talking away. And Ryan's got something raccooning going on over there.
I have all these rocks, all these healing stones. And these two, like, if you're looking at YouTube, they fit.
They put together.
Like, these two are like made to spoon with each other. But they're like, I had a few rocks all kind of like stacked up in this pyramid thing, and then I went to go adjust one of them, and then everything fell down, and it made a noise, and I felt bad. I wasn't listening to you. Okay, anyway.
I see how it is. You weren't listening to
a tribe member.
Okay, hopefully you're out there listening to me.
This episode is just going to be called Squirrel.
Seriously.
Abby and Ryan have ADHD. Okay, so tribe member, joy. It should be fun.
Yes, and so I really like. Of course, I take all questions to heart, and I was sitting with it for a while because my first answer is absolutely, like, living in your true north self, in your highest good. Everything should always feel exciting to you, right? But then I have these moments where, and this is the example I used for her, all of my paperwork for my taxes is due to my accountant right now. Mm-hmm. That is not joyful.
Right. Unless you're an accountant.
Unless you're an accountant. Unless you are her. Yes. Correct. And she loves her job. She loves what she does. So that is not me. And so then I thought, how can I really answer this question? Because there are things that I am required to do as part of doing this job, which I love, doing this job that I feel is in my true north. It is in my highest good. And yet there are still these back office pieces that do not bring me joy whatsoever. And I will procrastinate and put them off. And so that was kind of it sort of stumped me. I'm like, well, I don't know now. I don't know. My initial answer was yes. And then I'm like, I don't know. But then that's when I'm like, yes, there is a way to actually do everything that you need to do, regardless if it's the most fun thing in the world, and still stay in your true north self.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, like, you're in a human body. That means you're subject to human body chemistry. Mm-hmm. And there are so many things that can just get your blood full of cortisol and norepinephrine and all kinds of stress hormones that can bring you down. There's so many things that can get your serotonin and oxytocin levels all kinds of out of whack. And dopamine is, there's so many things that chemically could send you into a place where you don't feel joy or contentment or fulfillment or wholeness, even if you're doing the thing you know in your soul you need to do, because their human bodies are all we have, and that's how they work. Mm-hmm. And so I actually had a conversation with this one tribe member offline where we were talking about chocolate chip cookies. How the dough to a chocolate chip cookie, like what do you call it if you just take the chocolate chips out of a chocolate chip cookie? What would you call that cookie?
A chocolateless cookie?
Right.
I don't know.
Like mathematically, you remove chocolate chip from the cookie, you remove it from the name, so then it's just called cookie.
Cookie.
But that's not descriptive enough. So then you think, okay, well, it's not a sugar cookie because sugar cookie has a different, like the dough profile of a chocolate chip cookie is chocolate chip cookie dough, whether or not it has the chocolate chips. It has a certain chocolate chip cookie-ness to it, right? Mm-hmm. And so the only name you can come up with for what that cookie would be is a chocolate chip cookie without chocolate chips.
Yes.
That's the best way to describe that thing, right? Mm-hmm. And it's missing something. Mm-hmm. And so what we realized was that for some people who are wired the way I'm wired and the way that she's wired, is that fun is the chocolate chips. It's not the whole cookie. But without that, it's not the cookie at all. It's like why eating a chocolate chip cookie without chocolate chips feels like a waste of space. It feels like that's what depression and sadness would taste like.
Seriously?
Because you're tasting the cookie that tells you there should be chocolate chips. You know, like everything about the dough.
No, because I eat the chocolate chip cookie, and sometimes I say, I wish this chocolate chip wasn't here because I just want more of the cookie.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
How are
if
we
somebody
friends?
made me because I will pick out all my chocolate chips and give them to you.
Oh my! But I can't just be chocolate chips. Like people who value fun as a part of the equation, we are often misread as only wanting to do things that are fun. And when something's not fun, I immediately don't want to do it. And
that's how you're read, or that's how you.
That's
really
how I'm
feel?
read. That's
okay.
how people reflect back to me.
Experience
They
you?
experience me to be.
Okay.
It's irresponsible. It's immature. It's not grounded. It's not, and that's not really it. It's just that if there's no fucking chocolate chips anywhere in the cookie, I don't want it. That doesn't mean the whole thing has to be chocolate chips. There are other ingredients. There are other things that give it space and give it weight and give it things that are not chocolate chips. And that's all equally valuable. And it needs to be there. I'm not wanting just like a bar of fudge. Like all the things need to be there.
So it needs to be the whole cookie.
It needs to be a whole cookie.
Not just the chocolate chip.
And not just the chocolate chips. But
Okay.
it can't not have the chocolate chips. It has to have them too. It has to have fun somewhere in there. Even in and around all the other not fun
chocolate chip
things.
cookie is the cookie without the chocolate chips. That reads fun to me.
That just is what sadness tastes like.
That's just tasting a good cookie without the chocolate
tasting
getting in the
is
way.
the fact that something's missing. Do you not like chocolate or happiness?
No, I loved. Oh, whoa. See, that's your definition. Happiness in the form of chocolate comes in a seized buttercream, seized candy buttercream. That is happiness in the form of chocolate.
Okay.
That's like,
I can get on board with that.
wow. That's
But
pure
you
joy.
you like chocolate chip cookie dough without chocolate chips.
Correct. Sometimes people use cheap chocolate. Sometimes people use bittersweet chocolate, which is better for you, but I don't love as much. And sometimes I really just want to taste the cookie because there's something about the cookie that's very delicious and simple to me.
I've never had a harder time understanding you. Like I know all the words you're saying and logically they make sense, but something's not getting through.
If we want to take this like metaphorically here, I feel like you're saying to me, you are validating all of my strengths tests in which that fun is at the bottom of the fucking list. Like, I want to take the chocolate out, and so you're calling me not fun.
No,
what are you
I'm just
saying to me?
You are a very strange individual, is what I'm saying. I don't...
No, this is actually a perfect example of perception. How you choose to see things and what judgments you place. Because you're judging me. You're judging me that I want to eat a cookie
so hard.
without a chocolate chip. But I am not judging you for wanting to have a chocolate chip in your cookie. I'm just seeing you as cool. That's Ryan. I'll be sure to always make cookies with chocolate chips.
Just gonna have to learn how to wrap my mind around the idea that there are people out there who like terrible things.
That's another judgment. Oh my word!
A really hard time.
Now
with
you're
this.
telling me I'm terrible. Okay,
no,
so
you're
but
not
here's
terrible.
my question.
Chocolate chip cookies without chocolate chips are terrible. It's okay with me if you like it. I just
That
don't
is your
know
experience.
why. It is my experience of objective.
But here's
reality.
my question: what the fuck does this have to do?
Okay.
With being in your true
Okay.
north?
No, this is the connection point.
Other than judging me for not wanting
we
chocolate
do a
chips.
record impromptu with no plan. Okay. The point is that the way this one particular tribe member is wired is that her cookie needs chocolate chips.
Okay.
That's the fun.
I can
And
meet her where she is.
So she needs...
That's her fun.
Fun needs to be part of the equation for her.
Okay.
And so what she was struggling with was, this is not... 0% of the thing I'm doing is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are no parts of this at all.
There are no chocolate chips for her.
No chocolate chips.
Okay.
And so where I got with her was like, that's your barometer for how to know whether or not you're in your true north. The fact that there are no chocolate chips in your cookie
That's her body compass meter right there.
Yes.
Chocolate chips. Okay.
Chocolate chips. And for the record, she agreed with me that cookies should have chocolate chips if you're doing.
Do you know I try to find the cookies with the least amount? Like it's a game to me. Like I will look at the pile and I will literally, I'll be like, oh, there's one that somehow missed the chocolate chips, and I will eat it, and I will count, and I will literally have a competition to find the cookie that has the least.
Well, you also talk about how I am the most fun person you've ever met.
Yes.
And that seems to be a good thing in your experience.
It is a good thing. That doesn't mean I want you in my cookie. Okay, but I cut you off. So back to how we're using this for her metaphor.
I don't even know what
She doesn't want to do something. She doesn't want to eat a cookie without chips. So
yes.
All right.
I'm gonna bake a whole batch of chocolateless cookies just to see.
That's a lot of fun right there.
Extract some joy from.
That's kind of like the little raccoon rubbing his paws together, like, oh, look at these cookies without chips.
That's my power animal. If I make those cookies and raccoons show up in my backyard, I'm gonna blow my lid.
Yes. Okay. So then, is it worth eating? That's
right.
Like her
For
question
her.
is.
That's her wiring. That's not like universally applicable to everybody, but we've narrowed it down.
I'm glad we've established
that's
that.
how you
but
know.
for her.
Yes. So the question is like, I guess the universally applicable thing for everyone in our audience who is not this one particular individual is, what are the chocolate chips in your cookie? Mm-hmm. What is the thing that it doesn't have to be the whole thing, but it has to be a variable in the equation somewhere? And then ask yourself, is that thing in this equation at all? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is no, then you may need to redirect. Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm. However, though, and this is the point that I was trying to make, is sometimes, like taxes, there are no chocolate chips, using that example. I'd be okay with that. But there are no chocolate chips in doing taxes for me.
Right.
But they are a necessary evil to the work that I want to do.
Evil. Hey, you want to talk about your 3 Bs?
Yes, we can. Absolutely.
This is a perfect segue. Is that where you were going? Did I just cut you off?
No, but we can talk. We can talk about that. Well, I wasn't. Yeah, we're here. Let's talk about it. So my point is that there is still a way to find chocolate chips elsewhere, outside and around, to make the taxes better. Right. So.
Right.
For example, like here's another example. We have to have our teeth cleaned, right? If we want to have healthy teeth, if we want to be able to eat our food, not lose our teeth, we need to go to the dentist, have cavities filled, have root canals, whatever the case may be. That's sort of that necessary evil to taking care of your physical body. Mm-hmm. But I can say that probably nobody really wants to go have a cavity filled, right?
Right.
If you are that really strange person. Like me, apparently, that doesn't always need chocolate chips. But that doesn't mean that has to completely derail you and pull you out of that really high frequency. And so that's where you were talking about my 3 Bs. That's where I sort of put this system into place where you can still do the thing that you need to do, but stay in that high joy frequency.
Yes.
Yes. So the 3 Bs. The first B is bag it.
Mm-hmm.
The second B is barter it. Mm-hmm. And the third B is better it. So bag, barter, better. So if you find yourself, and this only applies, I need to be very careful with what I'm saying, because this is not sort of a system that you use to just keep doing the thing that you really shouldn't be doing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, I don't even want to call it a Band-Aid. It's just a system to use to keep you going and on track to staying in your true north. So that might mean, this doesn't mean just do this system to just do the job continue doing the job that you don't really love. That's a whole different story. This is like if you're doing your taxes, or you're going to the dentist, or you're doing that thing that you need to do. So the first thing would be to bag it. Like, what is it that you're coming across? Is it in your wheelhouse to let go of? So using that example with our tribe member, if it's a cookie that doesn't have chocolate chips, why are you doing it? Can you get rid of it? Right? And getting very curious about, why is this even my life in the first place? It doesn't have the chocolate chips. I want the chocolate chips. Can I get rid of it? And if you can, great, get rid of it. That's the surest way to kind of stay in your frequency, is stop doing the thing that is not serving you.
Even if that thing is a relationship.
Even if that thing is a relationship. Absolutely. So bag it. But some things we can't bag. So then the next B, barter it. Is it something that you can trade off? Is it something that you can get somebody else to do? And so I use the example of when I was pregnant. I call myself in my marriage the handy hubby because I'm the one with like the handyman skills, the assembly, that's me. Like anytime something needs assembled in my household, it is me. So I am like 8 months pregnant and this crib comes in, and the last thing I want to do is like assemble this giant crib with this big belly in the way. Can do it, don't want to do it. And so it sat there in a box forever. And then I was talking to my friend and she said, you know, my husband's really wanting a coaching session, but he doesn't know really, you know, how to approach you, right? Being a man, that's kind of a difficult thing to do. And so then later on in this conversation, I was telling her about this crib and I'm procrastinating. She's like, my husband loves to assemble things. Like he gets so much joy. He gets all giddy about like laying everything out. I'm like, you're kidding me. So this little light bulb went off. Like, this is my bartering moment, right? He wants a coaching session, which I love to do. And I want a crib assembled, which I don't want to do. And he loves to assemble things. Perfect. Well, voila. So I traded a coaching session to have this crib assembled. And then it was like, that was a way for me to stay in my frequency and still get what I wanted. It served him and it served me. So that's an example. See, I'm getting in my own way here with my throat. That's an example of what bartering would be. And then the third one, though, is again, because if I'm using my example of getting together my tax paperwork, I can't really pawn that off on somebody else. That's right. Important things. I can't really send somebody else to the dentist to get a cavity filled for me. So that's when you go to the third B, and that is better it. And this is where, like, if you're doing that momentary thing that you need to do as part of our human existence, there is a way to better it. So it's, how do you find your chocolate chips within that moment if you're presented with a cookie that doesn't have them? And so what can you surround yourself with? And that's where, okay, does that mean doing this thing, you're going to give yourself a reward? That works for some people, right? It might mean, for me, I don't like to do it, but I really love to dance and I really love music. And so I literally was home alone. I cranked up the music. I moved my chair, put my computer up higher, and I was having a dance party while I was doing this paperwork. So I was like dancing down the hallway to get something out of the file cabinet, and then I'd come back to my computer and enter it. But it would almost be like a runway coming back down the hallway. And so, and it was like the music was loud, and then I love candy. So I was like chomping on all this Halloween candy that we have. And, so I ended up bettering my experience because I chose to add chocolate chips through music and candy, two things that I just love that are really easy for me to surround myself with. And so that's what bettering is all about, is really just figuring out what is a reward system for you? What is something that you can do in addition to doing this thing that will naturally keep you in your joy frequency, in your joy state, regardless of what it is. And it always works. That's the crazy thing. Is you just, and it may mean I had to do this in the beginning when I didn't know what was joyful to me and what was fun for me, is I literally made a list. And so when I did something and I had to actually better it, I would go pull out the list. Like, okay, what on this list can I add to this experience that's going to make what I'm doing better for me? So that is the 3 Bs.
So it's just about intentionality. Like a lot of the things that we talk about all start with taking inventory. And if your whole life is one cookie, your true north is the chocolate chips, and everything else that supports that or that you have to do is the dough, right? In this, my version of it.
And your version of a chocolate chip.
I don't know. We're going to have to reframe this so that it is universally applicable to all cookie lovers alike. But so for you, this podcast is a chocolate chip, but doing your taxes is the dough. Doing coaching is a chocolate chip, but going to the dentist is the dough. It still has to be in the cookie.
Correct, it does.
And so this 3 B's is like for things that still have to be in the cookie, maybe, unless you can bag it. But they're also, I tend to think of those things as things that support the chocolate chips. Like, we have a garage full of junk, and I'm trying to either sell it or get rid of it. I'd like to sell it, but if not, I'm just going to put it on the curb. And that's not really my favorite thing to do with my time. But it's got to get out of the garage some way or another. And so the thing that motivates me to do it is that I want to have an empty garage because I have a weight rack out there I don't have room to use. And so all of a sudden now, my motivation to do the not life-giving thing is tied to a life-giving thing.
Yes.
So doing the taxes is in support of
Correct.
the thing that is your true north. It itself, it may never be a chocolate chip.
Right.
And that's fine. But again, you need that dough. Otherwise, all you have is a pile of chocolate chips. And that's actually not... Like, I love chocolate chips in my cookies, and I don't just want to eat a handful of chocolate chips.
Yes, but it's... Oh, geez, I totally lost my train of thought. I had a really important thought there.
Oh, man.
Oh, well, because I think there's this misconception sometimes, and I get this a lot when I talk to people about gratitude. It's like, well, does that mean like living in your true north, you're just happy all the time? Living in your true north is just only doing things that you want to do. Is practicing gratitude only looking at the good things and ignoring all the bad things? Like that? No, that is not, what we are saying. And this is an example of a system that you can use, though, to do the things that are not always in your truest north to keep you at least in that energetic frequency. And that's how life is.
Right.
I mean, are we talking about enlightenment again if we're saying that everything you do is wonderful and a growth experience and I'd love to get there someday. This is in my notes from Marie. Like, she was even saying, like, to the spiritual world, like, war and famine and plagues are even seen as growth opportunities. They're not seen as bad. And to me, I'm thinking, gosh, what a beautiful position to be in, is to actually just show up completely neutral, to see that as an opportunity. And so that's what I feel True North is like. But I think for us, though, that it's just the experience of striving to be that. It's that practice of trying to be that, and that we may never get there. And that may be lifetimes of lessons that your soul is trying to learn. But the point is if you are striving and you are paying attention to those growth opportunities, there are ways to kind of keep coming back to that neutral or to that growth mindset that will keep you in line with your true north.
Well, I think that's a huge delineation to make. Like, we talk about enlightenment like it's a finish line. Like it's a switch that flips. But the more I engage with the very idea of enlightenment and how people talked about it back when it was like the cool thing, and they were writing all the books that we get it from today, it seems like it's more of a practice.
Yes, right.
And what I love about the idea of True North being north is it's just a direction. You still have to walk it. Like it's not
excellent point.
One of the things that really started to shift my idea of God from my Southern Baptist inherited theology was I started to think of God as more of a direction and less of a destination. And so in that sense, even if you are enlightened in a moment, you have to still choose to be enlightened the next moment. Yes. And that's, I think, the closest thing. I think that's all it really is.
It's movement.
Just, yes, and it's choosing. Yeah. And like, people come at me like that about gratitude as well. Like, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around words that I can give to this, because again, gratitude is not a reaction to something that happens. It's not like something good happens and then you have gratitude all of a sudden. Like it's not a chemical reaction. It's a choice. And one of our tribe members has the gratitude journal that says, "I'm grateful for," which is the normal thing. But then after that, she writes, "I'm grateful because." which is super powerful, because then you're going back to the fact that gratitude is a choice. And here is why I am choosing to interface with my experience with gratitude. And then there's a lyric to a song that I love. It gets me every single time. They say, it's easy to give thanks for the things you've got. It takes guts to be grateful for the things you've lost. I've been without a dad for 6 years. So being grateful for that is not easy. It's not always happy. It doesn't always feel good.
Right.
But gratitude is a high frequency regardless. And so there's this recurring idea whenever people push back on things that we say, and we're at a point now where like people will be like, wait, they'll like poke holes in it or prod. My answer is always something to the effect of, it is a practice. It's just a practice. It's a choice. It takes intentionality. It's not going to happen on accident. And it's not like you get to a point where that's just your life now and you don't have to keep making it your life. You just, it is always going to be a practice. Enlightenment,
Absolutely.
I think, is something you do, not something you achieve.
I would agree with that. Most definitely. Yeah. But this is, yes, you're very much right. This is a journey. You're just constantly moving north.
Right.
And that's what the 3 Bs are. It's just another tool that you can put in your bag to make sure that you're still moving north.
Yeah. And the bag it thing really gets to me. Well, it doesn't get to me. It hits me the hardest because it feels like the hardest thing to do, even though it's the first one. And
It
like
is.
a really easy litmus test is like, is this supporting a chocolate chip?
Right.
Is this
Well,
building
and
into
then-
something that's my true north? Or is this just something that I'm doing that has no actual soul consequence whatsoever?
Yes. And I talked about the body compass earlier, and I ran you through the body compass, which we never came back and talked about. Go back to, that's when we were still sitting in my office face to face.
Right.
Many episodes ago, where, yeah, if you want to know whether or not you should bag it, then you definitely put yourself through that body compass test, figure out what your meter is. And for this tribe member, that's, an easy metaphor for her is that whether or not the cookie has chocolate chips. And then then you're completely out of your head. You're pulling the answers from your body, from your intuition to be that compass for you. So then when you ask the question, like this is what I love, like about my job and what I do, is giving all these tools to people. Because once I can help you figure out what your meter is, and then I can ask you the question, is it something you bag and you have no idea? All I have to say is put it on your body compass meter. Where does it fit in your meter? And if there's no chocolate chips, the answer is so clear for you. There's no logical thinking that you have to bounce back and forth. You literally have your answer that is based from your body as to whether or not it's something that you can bag. Still not saying that that's an easy thing to do, because that might require telling somebody no. We have a hard time doing that. But you also now know the answer of what happens when you don't.
Yes.
And how that feels.
I just looked it up. It's episode 7, or actually 1, 2, 3. Episode 4, part 1. Fear,
Episode 4.
fatherhood, and the body compass meter, part 1.
There you go. Okay. That was a long time ago.
I also thought it was super interesting how Marie gave us that tool for feeling what your body feels, like what you're really feeling, not what your brain's telling you you feel.
Yeah.
And then she mentions, I don't know what I feel until I do this.
Yes.
Like, it's almost one of those things where what I heard her saying without saying was that if I ask you how you feel and you immediately have an answer, that's the wrong one.
Then you actually feel the opposite.
Right, because she was like, that's not what you feel, that's just what you think you feel.
Yes.
And that blew my mind.
Well, this is... Don't assume. Yes, it says when... no. Yeah, I wrote so many things down.
How do you write
I wrote
that? When
so many things. Well, that's the thing I thought I was going to read. But yeah, because what you're spitting out is a feeling that you manufacture to support the thoughts that you're having.
Yes.
That I was like, holy crap.
Yes.
She's right.
I
Yes.
had never thought of it that way before, but it did make a lot of sense.
Yes.
It made a lot of things make sense.
Well, it completely... I'm like, as a coach, that's like the best thing I could ever hear, because now that cuts through a lot of questions that I have to ask you to get through the crap. I can immediately just assume that what you told me is really the opposite. we
Right.
can get somewhere a lot faster.
Did you notice that when she said that, we both just stared blankly at her
Yes.
like deer in a headlight?
Yeah.
I mean,
felt
my internal process was, I don't know if I agree with that. But I didn't want to say that to the person I was interviewing who wrote the book that I was gushing over.
Yeah.
So instead I said, correct.
Yes, correct. Oh my gosh. Thank you for that. But this is going to be an interesting experiment, because now listening back, like the third, what am I on, like the third or fourth time to this, going back and listening to my own show, I don't know that I completely believe everything that she says, but I don't necessarily want to challenge her on that because she's a guest on our show. But this is the interesting message that's come to me since I've sort of had that thought. And there have been other times, like this whole affirmation thing, when people say affirmations really work, and she explained it so well for me. Like, they do work if you already have that belief system in place, and I clearly don't. And that's why they don't work for me. But I've always just tried to believe in them because somebody, quote unquote, more important told me I should, right? Or that they work, or that they are valuable and life-changing. And so, but they've never really sat well with me. But I keep going. And so the lesson that I've learned is that I don't always have to believe everything that the other person says, because it might not serve me. And that's really important for me to differentiate, that I just still need to trust myself. And ultimately, that's what she's saying. That's what I'm taking away, is that I need to just trust what's coming up for me. And it might be different than what she's saying, but that's because it doesn't work for me, but that's okay.
And she also made room for that to work for you. Like, she didn't say affirmations don't work.
Right.
It was like, well, if you're in this situation, in this state of being, they're going to work. And if you're in this one, they're not. And if you're in a place where they don't work, here's an alternative tool you can use.
Yeah.
Folks, if you're jumping around and you haven't listened to the interview, just go back. I have also listened to it 3 times. And most of the feedback I'm getting is people listening and re-listening and re-listening. I think, like, you can see the metrics and how many people have listened to it. I think I should cut that in like a quarter. So that's actually the number of people who have listened to it, because you can't listen to it just once.
No.
It's so good.
I finally sat down yesterday and listened to it full attention with notes, because I just kept finding things. I always just listen to podcasts when I'm cooking or doing laundry or something else, and you just pick up things along the way. But I finally just stopped and just listened, and got a lot of really good stuff out of it. Yeah, so go listen.
To our podcast.
To our podcast. Now. Yes.
What are you grateful for?
Oh my gosh, we're at the hour already.
We are. What? We're past the hour, but people are still hanging with us, and we're very grateful for those people.
Yes, we are. What am I grateful for? Today, I am grateful for my son, because he is one of my greatest teachers. Right now, I'm noticing that he's having a hard time looking me in the eye and keeping that gaze. He looks away, and he is an empath, and he's very much a feeler. He feels everybody's feels. And so to me, that was sort of a big eye opener as to there's something else going on within me right now that he sees that is uncomfortable for him. And he's either feeling it and worrying about it, or taking it as his own, or he's worrying for me. And so I'm grateful. He's taught me how to be a better person, but also a better human in his own way. Because going back to what Marie said, is I love him so much that clearly that's teaching me to love myself, because there's something within me that isn't right. And I don't want him to see me that way. And I want to love myself enough to figure out what it is, so I can model for him, how to take care of it, so to speak, for lack of better words, when something for him comes up. So I'm just really grateful for his teaching moments.
He is Yeah, you just look in that kid's eyes and you can tell that he carries a lot. Like he lives in a very big world.
Yes, he does.
And he doesn't know any different.
No. And that worries this mama's heart. So I have to turn that worry into self-love and teach him what to do with it by doing it myself.
I have a whole episode's worth of shit to say on that topic that came up in a conversation I had. So each of our tribe members, part of becoming a tribe member is you get like one free session of healing with me. And I've been going through all of them and doing that. I just decided this. It's not anywhere on Patreon. I was like, you're all going to get one. And now it's a thing. But I had a conversation with one about self-love. And one of the things that happens in those ARC sessions is inevitably I will find myself saying things that I know I'm not coming up with myself. It's not coming from me. It's coming through me. And so we had a conversation about self-love where not only was I saying things that were blowing her mind, but it was also blowing my mind. And I was like, oh, we need to unpack that because there's an angle to the self-love idea that I hear. I do a lot of listening to podcasts and reading of the books in the realm of self-love, and this is something that I don't hear worded this way very often, if ever. So I just wrote it in our show notes.
Excellent, because we do need to unpack it. There's a lot of misconceptions about self-love.
Yeah, or just blind spots.
Yeah, it's a good.
And this is a huge one. Okay, so I'm grateful for two things. One of which I came into this episode ready to be grateful for, and the other one I developed while we were talking. First of all, I'm grateful that I have the inner tools to coach myself out of feeling a whole lot of shame around judging my podcast co-hosts over cookies.
Oh, wow.
I would have just gone into a downward spiral if I didn't have my positive inner monologue trained and ready to go to combat the... Yeah.
To not think less of me. Wow.
Well, no, think less of myself. Like I like when in my experience, because now we're debriefing this actual episode that we're still recording. It was all playful, and then you said the words, "You're judging me," and there's a little trigger in the back of my mind that was like, "Is this no longer playful? Like, am I actually causing harm now?"
Okay.
And so I started trying to read body language to be like, are you still on that wavelength? Is this all good? Or am I triggering you in some way that you're going to have to go deal with later? And so then that started happening. And then, of course, that goes right into, oh, Ryan, you fucked it up. You fucked up the podcast. You fucked up Abby's day. Yeah. And so, like, if I let that happen, it just happens. And then I just go, brrr, I just want to shut down. But then I have this other trained positive voice that's like, no. We're not going to go into shame land. We can go into guilt land, and then we can own it, and then move on. And so there's all these reminders, all the affirmations, all the tools I have for like not going into shame land when I do something that I perceive as being perceived as me being less than my best. Got
it.
So that was all happening since
I'm
the
grateful
cookie
for
talk
that
until
too,
now.
Because I'm not offended.
Right, well, that's what this voice, if you're watching on YouTube, that's what this voice is saying. Is like, she's not fucking offended. She knew you were joking, right?
Yeah.
But then there's those ones that like, you're ruining everything. And so, like, I was kind of like watching them have that conversation in the back burner, and it's such a matter of habit now that I don't have to be as actively engaged. I can just kind of like watch those two voices argue while being present.
You're saying you're the observer.
Yeah, and so I'm just grateful that those tools have been trained up and in place, and we're able to, get released. But my actual gratitude is I have two friends. I used to work with them back in the good old days, and it was one of those things where we would all work in one room lined with all of our desks, so we're all just sitting back to back, and there would just be banter, and there was always something to laugh at, and one of these two people turned around and looked at me and said, "You realize that these are the good old days." Like, we were in the middle of it, but we all knew that at some point we would all have scattered to our own adult career selves, and that we would look back on that moment and be like, those were the good old days. But she was able to name it then because it was so palpable, right? I'm still in touch with most of the people that I worked with in that bullpen, but two of those people now have a podcast that they co-host together called For Folk's Sake, FOLX, for folk's sake. And it's all about diversity and inclusion, especially in the workplace, and they're getting more like they're venturing outside of the workplace because of the election season and all the topics that are being discussed. But just every single episode that they've released together in this new season, I have been almost brought to tears. I have felt angry about some inequity that's been brought to bear that I was completely unaware of, and they're just like shedding light on it. And I'm like, oh, it can't be that way. We have to fix it. Like there's always a part of me that's mobilized. Like I need to start a nonprofit that does these things, and it just like, it stirs me up, but in all the ways that I feel like I need to be stirred up, in ways that I feel like it was wrong of me to ever be complacent or unaware in the first place, and they do it without judgment. There's no condemnation. They're just saying facts and talking about their own experiences as people who belong to marginalized people groups. And it is just so, at the end of every episode, I text at least one of them and I'm like, I'm so thankful for this. Yeah, I'm so glad that you said that thing that you said. It was so great. And so I'm just grateful for those two people. Their names are Court and Sarah. And if you like our podcast, you will like their podcast. For folks' sake, I will link to it in the show notes.
Awesome.
And they had no idea that I'm doing this.
And it's a Sarah.
It is a Sarah. It is
Good
a
people.
Sarah. When I mentioned the Sarahs, that my thing with Sarahs, I went to every Sarah I've ever known, and I was like, "You should listen to this podcast. I'm talking about you."
Awesome.
So, yeah, they're both incredible. They're some of my favorite people ever.
Awesome. Good. I'll check it out.
And one thing I've been meaning to say for several episodes that I haven't is we have a YouTube channel where you can watch us do this live, right? But the URL to that YouTube channel is youtube.com/UCG-JV0W5O-Y-J5XMM1BX_GXOG.
Wow.
The only way to shorten it to a custom URL to YouTube, I don't know, True North, is to have at least 100 subscribers.
Oh.
So I'm just going to put an ask out there. If you don't YouTube, that's fine. If you don't care what we look like sitting in our offices with all of our junk in the background, that's fine. If you subscribe and never watch a video, that's fine. But there is a link in the show notes to that page.
Okay.
And I would be eternally grateful if you, our audience, would just go subscribe. Just so that we can hit 100, just so that we can have a shorter URL, just so that I can put a shorter URL in all those links at the bottom of our show notes, which I don't know if I've mentioned this, but the bottom of our show notes of every episode has the same little chunk of links where you can find all of our shit.
Awesome.
There, I have made the ask.
We need to talk about our anniversary show because...
Oh, yes.
The next episode, we're interviewing somebody, and then the next episode, I believe, is the anniversary.
Is the anniversary show?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. And we're not releasing the one that we recorded where we talked about it because that's now our backup for if we ever find ourselves without something to release on a Friday. So, you want to talk about it? Because I've been doing a lot of talking.
Sure, if I can remember at this point. We are almost 1 year old. I can't believe it. I cannot believe that we have been doing this for that long. And so... Yes, so coming up very soon, we decided to do an episode where we answer questions from our audience, either tribe members or from our audience. And so, but we want to add a little caveat. Caveat? How do you say that, homeschooler?
I'm now going to start saying caveat and not tell you how the actual word is pronounced.
I think it's caveat. A little caveat. Yes, with these questions is you can ask any question, anything that you want to know about Ryan, anything that you want to know about myself, to the names of our cats, to how we feel about dirty socks. I don't really care. Whatever it is that you want to know.
Dirty socks.
Tell me more about your first.
Someone's going to ask you that now.
Probably. Tell me more about your first intuitive experience. I mean, it can be anything. And so if you want to ask a question to Ryan, then email me at abby@truenorth11.com, and that way he won't know the questions until that particular episode where we're live, and I will ask them and he has to answer on the spot, or vice versa. If you have a question for me, you email Ryan at truenorth11.com. There's a gnat flying around. And
That's not part
then
of
he
the email
will
address.
Nope. And he will ask me the question live in our Q&A anniversary episode. So the sky's the limit, people. What do you want to know about us?
Literally any question that you send, we will ask within reason.
Yes, I'm going to preface and say there may be some things I might not be willing to answer. However,
Hey, I just said it'll get asked.
it'll get asked. Yes,
You can
it
answer
will most
however
definitely
you
get
want.
asked. Yes, but anything we've thrown a lot of stuff out there, and something fun we want to do for our 1 year
For our
anniversary.
little 1 year birthday
Yeah.
anniversary. Birth-anniversary.
Birth
That's the
anniversary.
word. Until next time, thank you for loving me. Thank you for being there.
Bye. We are grateful for you. Thank you for listening. And if you like what we're doing and you want more, then you can join our tribe to interact with other like-minded individuals. You can go through our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/True North Podcast 11.
Is it Podcast 11 or is it True North 11?
Oh, shit.
It's in our show notes. If you want more than that, you want some more hands-on healing stuff that we do, I do actual energy healing and body work, and Abby does life coaching and workshops. And you can find the URLs in our show notes when we figure out what they are.
And we are always trying to increase our reach and bring more people to find their true north. So we would really appreciate it if you could leave a review and rate it in whatever podcast platform you use.
Done. That's perfect. That was
What about
perfect.
the gratitude?
Oh, this one. Hang on. And one last thing. What are you grateful for? There. I said it. I said the thing.